So piecewise functions are special types of functions that are not continuous in the sense that if you sketch the graph of these functions, there will be gaps or jumps in your graph. So for example, if I may just show you what I mean, so if this is your Cartesian plane and you try to sketch the graph of these types of functions, they sort of behave differently at different intervals. So in one interval, the function might look like this one, right? But then after that, it goes like this, or it goes like that, and then after that, you have something like this. So, and this is a function because if you try to test that using a vertical line test, you'll see that it actually is a function. But it's special in the sense that, as I've said, at every interval, some interval, the function behaves differently. So from this interval right here, it behaves this way, but in this interval it behaves like this, and then after that behaves like that. So the behavior changes at different intervals. So that's just to illustrate what piecewise functions are. Now let's have an example. All right. So let's use this as our first example. So this problem describes a piecewise function, and so our goal is to find that function. Okay. So a user is charged 300 pesos monthly for a particular mobile plan, which includes 100 free text messages. Now, messages in excess of 100 are charged 1 peso each. Represent the amount a consumer pays each month as a function of the number of messages M sent in a month. All right, so let's just write our solution down here. Okay, so M is our messages, right? The number of messages sent in a month. All right. So now, as I've said earlier, piecewise functions behave differently, and here we can actually see one domain in which the function behaves one way, and then in another domain the function behaves differently, right? So here, observe that the charge is 300, and it includes 100 free text messages, right? So if we find a function that depends on the number of messages, let's call it function f. Okay? Let's call it function f. So function f depends on m. M is the number of messages sent in a month. So from here we can see that f of m is 300, right? So f of m is 300, meaning the charge is only 300 pesos. But that's only true if m is greater than 0 or greater than or equal to 0, but less than or equal to 100. Right? So the cost or the charge. Okay, so this is your charge, which is a function of the number of messages sent in a month, is equal to 300. But that's only true if the number of messages is between 0 and 100. But what happens when the number of messages sent in a month exceeds 100? So obviously you're going to pay a different amount for that. And so to denote that amount, let's use, say, a function g, right? So g of m. So basically g of m gives you the amount that you're going to pay when you exceed the 100 messages in a month, right? So that will be m, which is the number of messages sent in a month. But you subtract that with 100, right? Because you have a 100 messages that is actually free of charge, right? So that's m minus 100. So this represents the excess, right? So this is the excess number of messages. So excess messages, and you're going to multiply that with 1 peso each, right? So you multiply that with 1 peso each. right? Because every excess message is equal to 1 peso. So that would be 1 peso. I'm just gonna write 1 plus, okay, plus the original 300 amount, which you will be paying if the number of messages is less than or equal to 100. So that will be 300, okay? And this is true if m is greater than 100, right? So that will be the function, right? So here, this is true if the number of messages is less than 100. Now here, this is true if the messages is greater than 100. So as you can see, you have two functions that describes this problem right here. But what we want is a single function, right? So we want to write this one as just a single function because actually you have two functions in here, f and g. So what we want is just a single function, and we call that function piecewise function, okay? And we'll name that function, say, function c, okay? So function c is a function of the number of messages, and it is equal to, okay, now this is how we write piecewise functions. You usually put curly brackets before your expressions, okay? So, and then you're going to write the first function. That will be 300. If this is true, m is greater than or equal to 0, but less than or equal to 100. And that would be, let's just simplify this one. So that would be, I'm going to write 300 first, right? That would be 300 plus m minus 100 times 1 is m minus 100. And that is true if m is greater than 100. So that is your piecewise function. This is the function that describes the problem in example 8.